Hello everyone and welcome to another World Extreme Medicine podcast. My name's Lizzie Thorne and I'm here with you today where we will be talking to Beth Pascall, an ultra runner who's been balancing a career as a paediatrician and professional runner. My background is as an NHS doctor, currently working in emergency medicine and known to occasionally work as an adventure medic on expeditions, TV shows and sporting events, including some ultra marathons, which Beth and I will delve into a bit more. Welcome, Beth, and thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me onto the podcast.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, and thank you so much for finding the time. I'm sure you have a very busy schedule. Firstly, there's so much to talk about already, but tell us and the listeners how you felt going over that finish line in the Western States race in 2021.
The overriding feeling was relief, I think. With everything that had happened during the pandemic, and as a runner, probably that part of it was more stressful than working in the NHS. To be honest, I think being a professional athlete during the pandemic was a real challenge. So having just to deal with so much uncertainty over those, the previous year and a half, getting out to the US when the borders were officially closed to most people without an exemption was super stressful, and not knowing whether the race was going to go ahead. So yeah, and I'd taken a big risk to take time out of training to go out and to the US. So yeah, just relief that it had all gone to plan. It was an incredible feeling.
Absolutely amazing. And the fact that you are now the second fastest woman in history is incredible. And in 40-degree heat, I don't think many people run in 40-degree heat anyway. So the fact that you did that incredible race is phenomenal. So take us back to the start. When did you develop an interest in ultra running?
It must have been the latter stages of medical school or during my foundation years, I think. I did some rowing at university. I was a lightweight rower. So I think I built up a strong endurance base from that. And when I quit rowing because it just became not compatible with the clinical years of medical school, there was a few years where I was in limbo and kind of searching for something to I don't know, not necessarily fill my time, but my desire to be outdoors doing something. I read some books about ultra running and thought, wow, I didn't know that sport existed, and it would be really cool to try running that far. I don't know if it's possible or not. I don't think I can run that far, but it'll be fun to give it a go. But I certainly had no desire, or I had no idea I could be any good at it at that stage.
Amazing. Okay, so from then to now, what sort of things have you learnt that has made you as you are as an ultra runner? I know there's a lot of people that run day to day, and I know there's a lot of people that can't picture running a 5K sometimes. You go ahead and you do these incredible distances. How do you keep yourself going?
There's two or three, maybe more parts to that, I guess, is a big question. So physically, obviously, it's important. And it takes a really long time to prepare yourself to get to the top of the sport, or even to complete long races like this. So looking back on when I won Western States last year, a lot of people thought that, you were out in the US, you must have had a really good few months of training. And that was true, but really it's the last decade, or maybe even my whole life, that's been building up to that race. So it takes a really long time to build that endurance base. There's nothing special that I've done in training or anything, just being really consistent with running, really. And then strategy and tactics are a big part of it. So learning how to pace yourself for a long race like that, there's no kind of cheat way of doing it. It's just about running a lot of these long races and just becoming really in tune with your body. And people say, how do you know how do you know if you set off if you're going too fast? And I just know how fast I run the first 10 miles of a 100-mile race. I know what type of pace is sustainable. And again, I think it's just practice. And during a race, mentally, how do we keep going? I'm not really sure, to be honest. With all these things, we put so much effort into the preparation. No one's likely to give up easily. And when things get really hard, I think about all the people that have helped me get to the start line. So I think about, my husband, who's taken all his annual leave for the last 5 years to support me going to races, my coach, my family, all these people have helped me. That really kind of keeps me going when things get really tough. I think that's answered your question in many parts.
And then also touching on that, I'm sure nutrition is a big thing, because to keep your body fueled for over 100 miles, what sort of things do you consume?
I take gels predominantly. So I use a type of gel that contains a lot of complex carbohydrates. So I'm not just taking your standard maltodextrin-based sugary gels. So gels that contain kind of pureed rice and fruit and that type of thing. That I find I don't get the big kind of peaks and troughs in energy levels. So I can run for 20-30 hours on mainly gels. The gels I use are called Spring Energy gels. They're great. But I also have some Coke at aid stations. Coke is the best sports drink known to man. Salt tablets if it's hot, and some real food at aid stations if I feel like I want something a bit savoury. But mainly just a lot. I'm really good at eating. I think that's my where I have the advantage in these things.
That's amazing, because I know some people will be listening to this to hear what you do, because you are so good at ultra running, effectively, to put it that way. You are one of the top women in the world at ultra running, and I've been fortunate to meet other ultra runners, and they strive to get to where you are. And but you also hear loads of different techniques that are used and different things are consumed. People eat crumpled up Pringles at some places, peanut butter sandwiches. So it is very interesting to find out what works for you and what you do take. And then also, this sounds as though to train for something of 100 miles, like you say, it's your whole life has led up to this. But how do you fit in all your training runs around your NHS job?
We do, as you know, we get days off. It's okay. It's not too bad. Strong coffee helps. Being really organised, I guess. So I always my training is completely built around my work. So, I can't take any credit for this. My coach does it all, but he knows exactly when I'm working, what shifts I'm doing, what it involves. So, and some jobs I might be on my feet a lot. Some jobs, if you're in clinic a lot, would be more sedentary, and kind of really being meticulous about planning training around work, which he does a great job of, but also at the same time being flexible. So, for example, if I'm working night shifts, I won't do any hard training during between long shifts like that, because won't get any benefit from it if the recovery is really terrible. So, and also trying to prioritize sleep where possible. So between night shifts, I'll just sleep as long as I can, and then when I wake up, I will use that time to do whatever I can. So it might be an hour of easy running, 2 hours of easy running, but really kind of prioritizing sleep when I know that recovery is going to be compromised.
And within your training plans are, of course, there's a lot of running. Are there any other types of training that your coach puts in there for you?
I do a bit of cycling. Well, to be honest, I mainly cycle when I'm injured, which is which not does happen a lot. I am injured at the moment, but I've been lucky to not have a lot of injuries. But yeah, no, I do a bit of cycling. I'm swimming as well at the moment because of my injury. And I do some strength and conditioning as well, 3 or 4 times a week. Yeah.
And if you don't mind me asking, what injury have you got at the moment?
I have osteitis pubis. So I guess most of the listeners won't be very familiar with it because it's not particularly well. I don't know. I'd never heard of it, to be honest, until I got it. And when I've talked about it on social media and things, I've had so many people approach me asking me about it. I said, yeah, I've got that. And yeah, it turns out that it is a lot more common than most people think. So it's basically inflammation of the bones at the front of the pelvis due to sometimes weakness, sometimes tightness, sometimes poor movement patterns, or just overuse. I can't say that I've completely got to the bottom of what's caused mine, but yeah, we're getting there.
Brilliant. And with the swimming and the cycling, how do you think that will contribute to you going forward in terms of the running?
Well, in the past, when I've been injured, I've been able to do a lot of cycling. I broke my ankle in 2020 and I was able to do a lot of cycling with that injury. And I came
cycling, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was fine. I was actually running on my broken ankle for a few weeks before I had an MRI, but so cycling was nothing. Anyway, so I came back. When I came back to running, very quickly I was a lot stronger than I'd ever been. But with this injury, that I'm not doing very much at all. I'm doing very small amounts of cycling. It's all super, super easy. So I definitely will. It will take a long time to get back into running, but it's useful just to, even if it's super, super light, it's better than doing nothing. So I just keep ticking over. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So then, if we drop on back to the balance between ultra running and working within the NHS. What have you done over the years to be able to do that? I know you said that your coach works very hard at making a plan around your rota, but you mentioned that you did take some time out. Could you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so I had an out of programme period, so UTMB for people in the know, last year. So I applied to the deanery and on grounds of sport at an international level or professional sport. And yeah, they approved it, and they've been really, really supportive. In fact, I was originally going to take my UTMB in 2020 and started it. And within a few weeks, it became clear that I wasn't going to be travelling anywhere or racing at all. So I then went back into training and postponed it until last year. So yeah, I'm really fortunate that the deanery have supported that. So yeah,
that's so great to hear, because I know a lot of people find trying to get UTMB sometimes a bit tricky, and of course you can do these out of programme times for various things. So it's so nice to hear that your deanery really recognised your talent and prioritised you to go and invest your time in that. And I think that'll give a lot of listeners hope if they're maybe even considering approaching their deanery about doing something like that, even if it's maybe something unrelated to running.
Yeah, and I have plenty of colleagues who've had UTMBs for various reasons, and certainly my deanery anyway is becoming more and more supportive and recognising that to keep trainees in training. They have to be a bit more flexible and you know, like if for me personally, if I hadn't been given the time outer program, I don't know what I would have done, because at the time I had I just got my first professional running contract. So maybe I would have quit, and then not quit medicine completely, but plan to go back into training at a later date. So for me, it's been really cool that I've been able to do this. And yeah, I would encourage anyone to consider it or apply at least, and you might be surprised.
Incredible. So tell us a bit more about this professional running contract and how that has worked alongside your job as a paediatrician.
Yeah, I mean, I guess nothing particularly changed day to day, because I mean, for many years before I got a proper contract, I was, working with brands and things. The main difference was that they would then pay me, which, it was enabled me to take time out of training. So, yeah, I mean, it's cool to get some support, to get to races and things. It's fun to feel like part of a team as well. There's some other really, really great athletes on. So I run for Salomon, and yeah, got some really great other athletes on the team. We work quite closely with the designers, so we to help develop footwear, apparel, that type of thing, which is really cool to suit our needs. Go on training camp. That's cool as well. So yeah, it works pretty well, I think.
Wow, that sounds amazing. And where in the world would you say has been one of your favourite places to travel to participate in one of the ultra events? Because I've seen that you've gone so many places, so many beautiful places. So which one really stands out to you?
That's a difficult question. I probably would say running in the Grand Canyon is the coolest place I've run. It's just so different from anywhere else, in that normally if you're going to do a run with a lot of climb, you start at the bottom and you go up a mountain then down again. But it's like, I don't know, you start by running 2,000 meters downhill, 6 miles, 2,000 meters downhill into this oven, and it's like 45 degrees down there, and you've got to get out again. It's just, I don't know, it's just super cool. I ran in the Grand Canyon quite a lot when I was staying in Flagstaff in Arizona for a few months last year. And there's a famous route, or I know for runners, maybe hikers will do it over a few days, where you run the rim to rim to rim of the Grand Canyon. So you run from one side, the south rim, all the way like down into the canyon, up the other side, and then turn around and go back again, which it took me about 8 hours, I think. But it's just such a cool journey in such punishing conditions, and yeah, it's just when it's kind of dangerous, I think, especially if you're running on your own. Like if you run out of water, if you get too hot, then you're really in trouble. Like there's no way out except a very, very expensive helicopter.
That'd be a very
you learn a lot about looking after yourself in the heat, in those conditions.
Yeah. And do you carry safety devices on you?
No. I mean, what do you mean by a safety device?
Like the GPS trackers, in case something went wrong, that you could track on that's connected, or like the satellite devices.
No, I don't have any of that. I mean, I carry a phone, but there's no signal in the Grand Canyon and probably a lot of other places I run. But no.
Do you do a lot of your training with other people or by yourself, or a mixture?
A mixture, yeah. But I would say most of it I'm on my own, not through choice, but like no one wants to go running with me at 5 a.m. in the winter who also lives in the same tiny place that I live. So, but when I've been abroad and things, I do train with other people a lot. So it's just, I always choose to train with other people if other people are up for it, for sure.
Yeah. And just from that, I could really like get the feeling that you really quite get maybe a little bit of a thrill from like pushing yourself to the edge and going to into these conditions. Like, I know some people, they would think, wow, really? But so is that what happens? Is that what keeps you going? Is that what makes you really want to go find these areas, or completely different?
No, for sure. Like, I do enjoy really punishing myself. It's not all about that though. Like, it's cool to look back on. I mean, I look back on like running in the Grand Canyon and that time where I thought I was going to pass out with heat stroke and things. But at the time, like, you know, it's not always fun. But I mean, it's a big part of it is about being competitive. I mean, I was, I guess, running in the Grand Canyon, I was mainly there to get really strong and acclimatise to the heat, acclimatise to the altitude in order to perform well at the race coming up. But it's just a cool sport that the best training for the races is often pretty epic.
Wow. Just touching on things like that. So have you ever had an experience whereby maybe you have become unwell during a race? Because of course you're doing so many, and they do push the body quite to an extreme level.
I wouldn't say it's all relative, isn't it? I mean, I wouldn't say I've become unwell during a race in a way that I would require a doctor or anything. I haven't had any bad experiences like that or bad injuries during a race. I've been quite fortunate. Often things do go wrong during a race, and but no, I wouldn't say I've ever been like unwell as such. No.
Because as we have quite a lot of doctors or nurses, physiotherapists and paramedics and other healthcare allies that listen to this, I just wonder, would you have any tips for them who are looking to maybe support an endurance event, and what should they be aware of?
Ooh, that's a really difficult question because, as I said, I've never actually seen a medic at an event like that. And what I do at work could not be more different than what a medic does at an endurance event. I mean, I understand that feet, GI problems are probably the biggest things that medics have to contend with. And I guess I just learned about how to self-manage these things. So it's never got to the stage where I've needed a medic. I mean, certainly now I've said that, I'll need a medic in my next race. But
No.
So no, I don't have a good answer for that. Sorry.
No, I mean, to be fair, that's amazing that you've done it, but it also shows how prepared you are, and probably your organisation, and how you do put so much preparation into these races, and you prepare your body, and you listen to your body, and then so how comes you chose paediatrics as a speciality then, considering you have all this sporting experience and love, and you chose paediatrics, which is amazing, but where did that come in?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think everyone assumes that when they find out I'm a doctor that I must do something that's related to sport, but actually what I do could not be any further removed from running. I currently am working neonatal intensive care. So, and when people approach me about, oh, Beth, I've got this sore knee, what do you think it is? I'm completely hopeless. So yeah, I got into peds. Actually, I did some time working in a hospital in Zambia a while ago, and I was sent to the peds ward just because that was where they needed me. Or they needed somebody, they didn't need me specifically, but I had done 0 paediatrics. And yeah, I just fell in love with it. I felt like, it just seemed really, really important. You felt like you could save lives on a daily basis. That doesn't necessarily happen. Working in peds in the UK is very different, but they're certainly like, yeah, we could save lives on a daily basis, and it just felt really important. And I think that's why I chose to do peds. But it wasn't like a really clear cut thing for me. I did consider other things as well. But yeah, I haven't regretted it. I really enjoy my job.
And what was that trip to Zanzibar? When did you go?
Zambia. So,
so let me start that again, then they can cut that out. So, when was that trip to Zambia? When did you go?
I went during medical school, actually. Maybe I've always been someone who likes to take time out. I took a year out in the middle of medical school, and went and worked in a hospital there, and yeah, it didn't really matter that much that I was only a student, because there were so few resources. It's like I don't know, like there were only like 2 investigations you could order, like 5 drugs, all they need, and they were so short staffed, and they just needed somebody who could, and you get pretty good at putting cannulas in babies and toddlers if you do it like for 12 hours a day, every day. You don't need to have, I was well supported, but they just needed bodies, so you felt like you could really make a difference, which was really cool.
Amazing. And how is your current job going in regards to your ST5, I believe you said earlier to me? And so how many years do you have left? Is it 3? Is it up to ST8 for paediatrics?
Yes, officially.
Yes.
But they are training is changing, and that it will become more easier to competency progress. So training might be shorter than that, I hope, but depending on how much time out I have in the meantime.
So with that little hint, do you know what your next challenge might be? I appreciate you're an injury at the moment, but what might be in the back of your mind? Are you able to say?
It's difficult to plan at the moment, but I'm hoping to be fit to race the UTMB, the Ultra Tour de Mont Blanc, at the end of August this year. And if I'm fit beforehand, there will be other races that I do. But at the moment, I'm trying to just think about being ready for the end of August.
And so I know we mentioned previously you've done the UTMB before. What keeps drawing you back to that race?
It's that I don't feel like I've ever had a good race there. I feel like I can do better. There's something. I can perform better at that race. There's always been something that's gone wrong. So there's room for improvement there for sure.
Yeah, says the person who's finished twice in the top 5. But that's incredible. But I'm sure I appreciate it. Sounds like you're going to go for it, and good luck for trying to get there for August. I'll keep my fingers crossed that your injury gets better and you recover. So lastly, I would just like to ask maybe what your favourite race has been, and if you could tell the listeners about that.
Yeah. it's a difficult question. We've already talked about the Western States 100 a little bit, so I'll leave that aside. One of my favourite races is a race on the island of Reunion, which is in the I think it's the Indian Ocean. It's kind of near, or maybe a few hundred miles away from Madagascar. And it's an island not many people know very much about, and I certainly would never have gone there had it not been for this race, which is 100 miles or so, just crossing the island. And it's just so diverse. You have like white sandy beaches and palm trees, and then like 3,000 meter volcanoes, like active volcanoes, and it is just such a crazy diverse environment and culture as well. It's a French. It belongs to France, but it also has this kind of Afro-Caribbean vibe, and it's just a crazy place. And yeah, it's somewhere that I just never ever would have gone had I not been going, had I not discovered ultra running and gone to a race out there.
Amazing! It sounds beautiful. And what would you say to someone who is considering maybe going that little extra mile, going maybe from a marathon to an ultra race? What would you tell them?
Well, it's a very smart decision, first of all. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to run. Well, you can run a marathon on trails, but I don't know why you'd want to run on the road when you could run on the trails. And running a bit further just opens up more options, I guess. It's just such a cool thing to be able to do, to cover like a large amount of ground on your feet in reasonably fast. So running, it's just the right pace. So yeah, definitely go for it. Go somewhere that like really excites you. So pick a race that is in a cool place. And doesn't necessarily have to be abroad. Like there are plenty of awesome trail races, ultra races in the UK. And then just have fun with training. Like explore, like it's fun to recce race routes as training. And just go for it basically, and enjoy the process.
And as mentioned in the introduction, you've set the round record for the Bob Graham. So just tell the few listeners out there what that is and what that means effectively.
Yeah, so the Bob Graham is a route in the Lake District that takes in, I forget this right now, I'm having a mind blank. I think it's 64 peaks in a big loop starting and finishing in Keswick. And I say it's a route. You have to go to all the summits in the right order, but you take the fastest line between the summits. So it's as much as a navigational challenge as a physical and mental challenge. And it's quite a prestigious fell running route and record that it's a big part of fell running culture, and it's existed since the early 1900s. So there's a lot of history to it as well. So I did the round in 2020. It was a kind of lockdown project. Not during lockdown, obviously, but I was supposed to be abroad racing that summer, and it became clear that I was not going to be able to travel anywhere, so I needed to do something closer to home. So I decided to do the Bob Graham, and that kept me motivated during that first lockdown, running up and down tiny little hills outside my house in preparation for the country opening up and be able to travel to the Lake District to run the Bob Graham. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we do one of our courses in Keswick, one of the Expedition and Wilderness Medicine courses.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and some of our participants sometimes go out to some of the peaks. I don't think anyone yet has quite attempted all 64 whilst we're down there, but I'll set that challenge to whoever might join us one time. It's also amazing because I actually did a little bit of a Google, and it's less than 3,000 people that have actually gone ahead and completed the Bob Graham round. So
yeah. I mean, you're probably more up to speed than me. I don't know how many people have done it.
officially,
it's. I would say that's quite a lot for an obscure little route in the Lake District. But for me, the challenge was trying to run fast, and the girl that held the record previously is just phenomenal, and she's my role model. So. It was a big challenge and a big ask for me to go faster than her.
And do you remember the speed at which you did it in?
It took me 14 hours 34 minutes.
Wow.
And I think it's about 62 miles perhaps with I forget, but maybe 8,000 meters of climb. But it's not really about the distance or the climb, it's the terrain, because you're not on paths for most of it. It's really rough terrain. A good adventure. I recommend it to anybody.
I'll start with one peak. No, sounds amazing. I'll have to go out to some of the peaks when I'm next there. That sounds amazing, just to even see how and what the terrain is when you run there. So incredible.
Yeah, it's you can break it, so it's broken down into 5 legs, kind of divided by road crossings. So you can go out and just run a leg or walk a leg, or 2 in one go, which is how I trained for it and recce'd it. Really, don't just train and do it all at once. Yeah. So anyone could do at least a leg or 2 for sure. Brilliant.
Well, look forward to that indeed. Amazing, incredible. Well, Beth, it's been absolutely amazing to talk to you. You've inspired me. I feel like I'm going to go on a run now. So I'm sure the listeners are going to be mesmerised by hearing just a little snippets that we've heard today. And for everyone that's listening, please go ahead and follow Beth as well on Instagram. Beautiful photos to see, incredible stories to hear, and get involved, get ultra running effectively.
Awesome.
Anything else you'd like to add at all?
No, nothing. Thanks again for letting me share a little bit of my journey so far.
Thank you so much, Beth, for being with us all here and talking on this podcast. I'm sure you've inspired so many people, and everyone will just be fascinated by what you've done. Thank you again from us at World Extreme Medicine for tuning in and listening to this podcast. Please feel free to go ahead and look at all the other podcasts we have. And if you want to take part in any of our courses, we have them up and running again post-COVID, and we can't wait to see many people there with us.